We have made this presentation on the George Snow Scholarship Fund available to you in case you were unable to attend your high school presentation or you just need further information. Our application is now open. It will remain open until February 1st at 5 p.m. Today I will be discussing several things: our scholarship eligibility, how our scholarship works, what we do for our snow scholars, and then I will go through the application and explain the best way for you to complete it. What are our eligibility requirements? We only have one: financial need. There is no GPA requirement. There is no test score requirement. They are both on the application, but they do not determine eligibility. So let's talk about financial need. We are not tied to the FAFSA application. So if you submit a FAFSA application and you do not qualify for federal aid, that does not affect your eligibility for our application. We determine financial aid, financial need on an individual basis. We look at every scholarship application on its own individual merits. Our scholarships are 4-year college scholarships, but they can also be used for a 2-year program or a vocational certificate. You can use our scholarships at any school, in-state, out-of-state, internationally. The school must be accredited, and that is our only requirement regarding the school that you attend. When you become a snow scholar, you become a member of our family. We show this in everything that we do. We treat you like we would our own family. And this is why we have our added value programs. These are all services that we offer to all of our students. The first is our new computer or college supply stipend. The second is our college gift bag program, which is full of various items that you can use when you are in school. We also offer a free physical and shot program, and that is offered before you would begin college. We have a free makeover program, which is at a local hair salon, and this is also before you begin college. We have an emergency fund that is available to you as long as you are a snow scholar, and this is not your scholarship funds, but money that you can use in an emergency. We have a Monday motivational message where you will receive a message every Monday. This is our way of staying in touch with you and to let you know that you have a family back home that is always cheering you on. I can't talk about the care packages because that is a surprise. We award over $1 million every year, with an average scholarship award around $10,000 per student. Now I want to explain our application process. Your application will be scored by 60 people in our community. They will read and score your application 5 times. Your score is what will determine if you receive an interview, and no one receives a scholarship if they don't receive an interview. The people reading your application don't know you. They know nothing about your character, your motivation, what type of student you are, what type of person you are. But they are trying to determine if you are a good investment. It is up to you to paint the best picture of yourself. You need to show them in this application exactly what kind of person you are and that you are a good investment. If you demonstrate a lack of effort in this application, if you demonstrate that you are not taking this application seriously, that will be reflected in your score, and you are hurting your chances in receiving an interview. So now let's begin our application. Now we're in the application. This is going to be the first page you see, and it's just your normal sign up, sign in. The only thing that I want to mention about this page is that please make sure that you are using an email that you check regularly. If you use an email that you never check, then you are going to miss out on important notifications from our office. We are only going to be communicating with you during the application process through email. So if you are not checking this, or if you sign and use an incorrect email, you may miss out on an interview notification or a scholarship notification. Now, the first thing that you are going to do when you get into the application is create a profile. You might think that that is not an important part of the application because it's your basic information, and you couldn't be more wrong. This is the first thing that the selection committee member will be seeing when they click on your name. This is the first bit of information. This is your first chance to make an impression on a selection committee member who is scoring your application. This is also the first opportunity that you have to either make a mistake or fill it out correctly. The biggest mistake that we see with students is that they fill this out like they text, and everything is in a lowercase instead of using capital letters properly. You must have proper capitalization on this page, and you need to be careful in using your browser that filling out your name will not autofill it. Because if you have filled it out previously incorrectly, it's going to fill it out in this application incorrectly, and you need to make sure that it is done properly. Your first name, your middle initial, your last name all need to have a capital letter first. Your address needs to have proper capitalization. The city you live in needs to have proper capitalization. The reason this is so important, aside from the fact that that's just how it should be filled out, is that when you submit this all in lowercase letters, the first impression that someone who is scoring your application has is that you are, again, not taking this application seriously. You're not understanding how important it is, and you're not bothering to fill it out the correct way. You are asking the selection committee members to award you thousands of dollars. You need to make sure that you are giving them the right impression by filling out this application correctly. And this starts at the very beginning. And you don't want to start off with something that's so easy to make sure that you are doing correctly. You don't want to start off by losing points from the very start. You want to also make sure that your email address is appropriate. If you have an inappropriate email address, that's going to hurt your score right from the very beginning. Once you have completed your profile, then you are able to get started in your application. That's going to bring you to a general instruction page. In this page, I'm not going to go through all the rules. You can certainly read that on your own, but I do want to point out a couple of points. Number one, our deadline is February 1st at 5 p.m. I do not want you to feel that if you have logged into the application, that saves you from not submitting by 5 p.m. That is absolutely false. If your application has not been submitted by 5 p.m., you will not be considered for a scholarship. That is absolute and final, and there are no exceptions. You have 3 months to complete this application from November 1st to February 1st. There is no excuse for you not having this done on time. Colleges have deadlines and they do not accept applications beyond that time. We do not either. So please do not call the office with reasons why your application was submitted beyond 5 p.m. because there is no excuse and we will not make any exceptions. The other notice that I want to mention from this page is it discusses FAFSA, and I do want to point out again that you do not have to submit the FAFSA application as part of our scholarship application. It is not part of our application. However, if you do receive an interview, you will be asked to bring the student aid report, which you only get once you have submitted your FAFSA. I will caution students, our interviews are not until April. if you are going to be eligible for aid, especially aid from your school, institutional aid, you do not want to be waiting until this late date to be submitting your FAFSA application. You want to make sure you get that in now, because that money is available on a first-come, first-served basis. And if you are waiting until the end of March, early April to submit your FAFSA, there's a good chance that there will not be money available to you. The other item I want to mention regarding FAFSA is that you need to read your student aid report and make sure that you are not in verification. If you read your student aid report and it shows whether or not you have aid and it does not mention verification, you are okay. But students who show up for our interview and are in verification, there is a problem with your financial aid. You have not resolved the problem and your financial aid has stalled and it's not going forward. We are unable to determine what your financial need is. So please make sure you read your student aid report prior to coming into the interview so that if you are in verification, then you are able to take care of that issue. So our application is in 3 parts. As you can see, you can be in any status of those 3 parts, not started, in progress, or complete. You must complete all 3 sections before you will be able to submit the application. You can move from one section to another. You don't have to complete one section before moving on, but you cannot submit the application without completing all 3 sections. At the bottom right, you see a counter that will be running as to how many days are remaining before the deadline. You will also be receiving regular emails from our office reminding you of that. There will also be an edit button down at the bottom once you have submitted your application. If for any reason after you submit you need to go back into your application and do any edits or changes to your application, you are able to hit the edit button and do so. When you hit the edit button, you will get a very large warning on your screen that says, "Warning, you have reopened your application. Please make sure to resubmit," because if you make changes to your application and then do not resubmit it, then your application will stay in draft and it will not be submitted. So please make sure that you resubmit your application. The beginning part of our application is the academics. As you see, there are asterisks. If there is an asterisk by a question, you must put something in that field. That field is required. If it does not apply to you, then you can simply put N/A. You must have something in the field though. If it is a financial question and it does not apply to you, then you can put 0, but your application will not be able to be submitted unless you have something in those fields. So please make sure you don't leave those blank. The top question here, which of the following have you completed? You are going to have the option of SAT, ACT, both. My school does not require these scores. I have not taken either test. Please be careful with this question. You can superscore. You do not have to give us both scores if you have taken both the SAT and the ACT. That is completely your choice. We do have to have one of those test scores, though. I did tell you it does not determine eligibility, but it is on the application, so you must follow the rules. If you have not taken either test, you can choose that option. However, if you take the test, one of the tests, and you receive your scores back prior to our deadline, I would suggest that you go back into the application and amend that, and put which test you have taken and your score. If you choose the option where it says that your school does not require that you take this test, you need to be very careful as to what schools you are listing. I am aware that there are schools that do not require either test. On the following page, we will be going over colleges that you list. You need to make sure that the colleges that you are listing do not require either of those tests if you are putting that option in. Otherwise, you are putting up a red flag because you're not following instructions. Either you are trying to hide a test score or you're just not following the instructions. Because if you list a school that does require them, but you're telling us that your school does not, something isn't matching up. So please be careful with that question. This page is extremely important, and many students hurt their chances in receiving interviews by how they fill this page out. You see that you have the opportunity to list 3 colleges. We do not require that you list 3 colleges, but you also see that there is a field that is required by all 3 colleges. If you are only applying to 1 or 2, that is fine, but you must put an A by the other college number because there must be something in that field. I also want to explain that whatever you list for your colleges, let's say you list 3 colleges, but you decide to attend a different school. That is fine. We're not going to hold you to the school that you are listing on this application. What will hurt a student is the application status on this page. It is a drop-down menu, and there's numerous options. You need to be very careful which you select. The only choices that you should select that will help you are applied, accepted, and waitlist. You have other options in that drop-down menu that you should not choose. The first one that will hurt your score is not applied yet. Now again, I said at the beginning that the selection committee is reading your application to determine if you are a good investment. If you submit an application and it lists 3 colleges and you say that as your status that you have not applied to 3 colleges, are you putting forth an application that shows motivation, that shows that you are a good investment? I don't think so. You may be an excellent student, but you're not showing the selection committee that you have any motivation. The deadline's February 1st. Certainly by February 1st, you could have applied to at least 1 college. So if you're putting on here that you haven't applied, there's a very good chance that your score is going to be low and you will not be receiving an interview. Again, you want to give the best picture of yourself and you want to show that you are taking this application very seriously. Do not use that as a status on any of those lines for college. The other option is denied. That is not something that anybody expects you to go back in and fill in. If you've listed a school and before the deadline you find out that you were not accepted into that school, do not feel compelled to go back into the application and change the status to denied. It's not something that is going to help the application, and no one expects you to go back into the application and change that. So that is not a necessity. Anticipated major. You can put what you want for your major. If you are undecided, then you can certainly say that you are undecided. There are plenty of high school seniors that are not sure what you are going to study. I caution you not to just simply list subjects here. If you list a bunch of random subjects, they are going to feel that you are all over the place and that there is a lack of focus. That's completely different than if you are double majoring and you're listing 2, or if you list 2 subjects. But to list more than 2 is not going to help you and is going to make you look like you are completely ping-ponging between a lot of different subjects, which a lot of freshmen do, but for purposes of this application, I would limit that to 2 if you're not sure what you want to study yet. The first essay will be describing what you think you will be studying in school and what you think that you're going to do once you're out of school. We have a 400-word minimum. I do not have a maximum word count. You can write as much as you want. I caution you in these essays, you must watch your spelling. You must watch your grammar. They are well aware that you can write these essays in Word where they're spell checked. So then why would you have any misspelled words? It's obvious then that you're submitting an essay that you didn't bother to reread, that you didn't care if there were misspelled words. When they have essays that have the letter U for the word you, or a lowercase I when you're saying I want to study, that is improper. You need to take the time to read what you have written. If you have written this essay before for a college application, then you can copy and paste it. We're not looking for you to have a whole brand new essay as long as it covers what they're looking for. If you are undecided, you can certainly write about that you want to wait till you get to school in the fall and take courses. It needs to be an honest essay about what your goals are and what you want to be doing in the future. The following is your work experience, school activities, and so on. This slide is pretty self-explanatory. If you haven't had any work experience, you're going to click that at the top. Otherwise, you have the opportunity to list up to 2 work experiences. It could be internships, anything that you want to put that fits that appropriateness. You would list this here and then follow this information on this slide as well. Your school activities. At the top, it asks how many would you like to add. You will have the opportunity to add up to 10. Depending on how many you add, you will then have that 4-question prompt for each activity. Now, I will tell you that if you were to add a certain number less than 10, and then before February 1st, you realize there's other activities that you would like to add, this is certainly something you can come back in and change and add more to, as long as it doesn't go over 10. You will put in the activity. Now, this is anything that you have done within the last 4 years of school. So you would put in the activity. You would put in the year that you were in this activity, freshman, sophomore, junior, senior. The position. Did you have a leadership position? What was your role? If this was a sport, anything that you can do to give more information on this activity. And the description. That's a very brief description. It could be a description of your role in the activity. It could be a description of the actual club or the actual activity that you are part of. Community and volunteer activities. This is the same thing. At the top, you can add as many as you want up until 10. And then you will follow that same 4-question prompt. Awards and honors. This is the same thing. You can add up till 10. Now, I will tell you that for awards and honors, this is not just academics. This is anything, any recognition that you have received in the last 4 years. And also, I would like to mention, if you are nominated for anything, but you're not going to find out until the end of the year if you've received that, put that in there. This application is your opportunity for you to brag about yourself. So don't feel like you should only be listing 2 or 3 and that it really is too much if you list more than that. If you have more than that and it speaks and it tells the story of you, then you should definitely list those. Now, the second part of our application is the areas of study. I want to explain how our scholarship works. We have general unrestricted funding that goes towards scholarships. And then we have restricted donors that come in, and we have restricted scholarships that go for very specific majors or very specific things that a student will click yes or no to. I want to make it very clear when you are going through all the following questions that you can answer no to all of these questions and still be eligible to receive scholarship money from the George Snow Scholarship Fund. However, if there is the possibility that something may apply to you, then you should check yes, because that will put you in consideration for that restricted scholarship. I'm not going to hold you to that. Let's say that you check yes to the field of engineering, but before or after the deadline, when I have a conversation with you, you decide you don't want to do engineering. That is fine. Just because you've checked engineering doesn't mean you have to stay in the field of engineering for purposes of this application, because for all of these major questions, you do have to stay in the field in college. So I will definitely be talking with you and making sure, is this the field that you are going to stay in if you're going to be considered for an interview in that. For these following questions, and you can see they are very specific, it either applies to you or it doesn't, but just be careful, because once the deadline passes, then I'm not going to put you back into something that you may have qualified for. I do want to mention that if there are students who are seniors in medical academies, there is a different way that you would be filling out this application if you want to be considered for the Quantum Foundation Healthcare Scholarship, which is the same application. And you need to give me a call, and my number I will give at the end so that we can discuss the different way that you would fill out your application. As you can see, there are very specific questions. You will be able to go through them at your leisure to see if any of these yes/no questions apply. I then have 4 questions that are not just yes/no. These donors wanted the student, if it applied to them, to answer their prompt by either a short essay or questions. And so if you want to be considered for the scholarship, then you must follow the prompt. If you have a physical or learning disability, if you are planning on pursuing a career in the field of music or music education, if you are a caregiver, which is not a babysitter for money, but an actual caregiver, if now or in the past you have provided assistance to a family member, or if you live in a Habitat for Humanity of South Palm Beach County home, or you're part of their organization that you'll see on the application. For all of those 4 scholarships, it's not just a yes/no question, and you will see that and you can follow the instructions. References and reference letters. References are mandatory. I must have 3, and you need to follow the instructions. It says very clearly, do not include family members, and at least 1 reference must come from someone outside your school. That doesn't mean that any of them have to be from your school. What it does mean is that all 3 of the references cannot be from your school. So if you submit these 3 references and they're family members, or all 3 of the people come from your school, again, you're not following instructions, and that's going to affect your score. Now, that is different from reference letters. These are not mandatory. These are completely optional. You can upload up to 3. They do not have to be the same people that you listed as your references. That is completely up to you. It is not going to hurt your score if you do not have any reference letters attached to your scholarship application. I would encourage you, if you have the opportunity to get at least 1, that you should do so. It certainly is not going to hurt you, but it can only help you if you have that in there. So if you can get a reference letter, then you should have that little bit of extra motivation to go get that done. And this is our last essay, personal characteristics. Do you have a challenge in your life, in your family's life? Do you have a special attribute or accomplishment or something in your background? This is an opportunity for you to help the selection committee get to know you better. It's a great opportunity for you to write something so they will understand who you are. Again, if you have written something like this for a college application or something else, you can just copy and paste, but you need to be very careful. I have a 400-word minimum, and the same rules apply for grammar and for spelling. That can hurt your score, more than anything else. They are not looking for world-class writers. If you are, that's a wonderful thing. But it will hurt you more if you are just sloppy in the essay, because that shows a lack of concern and a lack of motivation. Now we're going to get into the family and home information. There will be a father section, a mother section, and then a step-parent guardian section. If you have no relationship with the person whose section you are in, you will check the top box. Otherwise, you will fill out all of this information. The selection committee will not get any of this information, nor will they get any of your financial information. That is for our office only. I do want to point out the comment box at the bottom. If there is something you need to explain to our office, but it's not something you're writing about in your personal characteristics essay, maybe you need to explain something about a financial situation or a parent's job or somebody having a disability, whatever the situation, the comment box is where you would explain that. And if there's going to be something irregular about the financial information, which we have not gotten to yet, if there's going to be something odd or something that needs explaining, then you must explain it. And the comment box would be where you would explain it. Here is where you're going to list if someone is going to college other than yourself. Remember at the beginning when I talked about financial need and I said that we look at every individual application separately. The reason that we do this is because everyone has their own different circumstance. Well, maybe you're part of a family where you're not going to be the only one that's going to college. That definitely affects finances. So if there is someone other than yourself that will be in college next year, then you are going to fill out this information. This begins all of the financial information. As I stated, the one eligibility criteria that we have is financial need. We must have this financial information. I don't know you. We don't know what your financial situation is as a person without this information. So everyone must submit financial information. The only question you are probably going to know yourself is whether or not you are eligible for Florida's Bright Future Scholarship. Other than that, you are not going to know the answers to these questions. This is why you don't go to your family the last minute and ask for help. They're not going to appreciate you coming to them and asking for this information at the last minute. Most of this is information that they are going to have readily available to them. There is asset information, which is information in their checking accounts or savings accounts, or what's the value of their house, do they own a business. There is liability and debt information. What do they owe in credit cards? What do they owe in their house? What other debt do they have? That information they will have readily. And then I have 6 questions that will come from a tax return. I do not need to have the tax return as part of my application. I must have the answers from a tax return. If you have any questions regarding this part of the application, please give our office a call. But I have to have something in these fields because, as you see, the field is required. So you are not going to be able to submit this application and not have something in. If the appropriate answer is 0, then that is fine to put 0, but you can't just leave it blank. As you can see, there are 2 questions on this page, and there are 2 questions on this page. And there are 2 questions on this page. Those are the 6 questions that I have from the tax return. You can always also get these other 3 questions from the tax return. Once you have completed all of the financial questions, you will be nearing the end of the application. You are going to come to our authorization page. And once you are completing the authorization page, you're at the end of the application. Once you complete your application and you hit save, it's going to bring you to the beginning of the application and give you the opportunity to review your entire application, which I encourage you to do. Once you have completed that review and you submit your application, you will get an email prompt immediately that says, "Thank you for submitting your application." If you do not receive that email, you must contact us immediately. There obviously has been a problem somewhere, and if you do not contact our office and the deadline passes and then you contact our office and your application is still sitting in draft, there's not anything that we can do for you because you did not submit your application prior to the deadline. So if you do not receive the "thank you for submitting," please contact us so we can find out what the problem is and make sure that your application is submitted timely. Obviously, this is another reason why you do not want to be waiting until the last minute. Now, our office number is 561-347-6799. We can be reached. If you have any questions, I encourage you to call our office if you have any questions whatsoever with the application, and you will be directed to someone who can answer your questions. We hope you apply, and everyone here at the George Snow Scholarship Fund wishes you the best of luck in the application process.